to the bold analysis, ladies and gentlemen. The former Deputy President Rigathi has made renewed attacks on President Ruto over the rumored plans to remove Chief Justice Koome and install new Supreme Court judges. What, in my opinion, started as a justifiable crusade against jurisprudence by President Ruto's friend Ahmed Nasir and Nelson Harvey, who I strongly believe were guns for hire, has now turned to a plot to remove the Supreme Court judges. I saw, of course, the bad blood between Ahmed Nasir and the Supreme Court judges started when Supreme Court said that Ahmed Nasir was not allowed to present any case before them, and even any advocate from his law firm will not be admitted, or rather will not be allowed to prosecute any case before the Supreme Court. It later took an interesting turn when the Nelson Harvey and Ahmed Nasir complained against Koome, leveled some complaints against Koome about incompetence of some judges, or rather how Supreme Court was, or rather the courts and some judges were not working as per the level needed, and they planned to remove Koome. But because they went after the judge, the country kept quiet. They now started a whole process and launched petitions between the Judicial Service Commission to remove all the 7 Supreme Court judges. In this podcast, it is important that we ask ourselves, what is the motive? I know it will be a tall order to remove the Supreme Court judges, but they will end up really affecting, they will threaten the tenure of those judges. What is the motive of the state? Kindly subscribe to our channel, click notification bell and like our videos. I want to say thank you for those who support our channel. Thank you very much. Subscription button is the one at bottom left corner, and top right corner is where you are going to see the notification node. When you click that notification after subscription, whenever I publish a video, you will get notification, and so you will not miss any of our well analyzed objective video. I want to say thank you for those who supported us in the project of February, where we were supporting the young lady Josephine. Next month we are going back to granny care, and we will be in the county of Kakamega. So we'll get back more into those details. But now, without much ado, I want us to listen to Rigathi.
Ako na damu ya watoto wa Gen Z, alafu wamesanya pesa na magunia, anaita wa Meru na kuwahonga na kudanganya nyinyi atupeane priority. Ni uongo, si uongo? Tena kama unataka kuongea na watu ya Meru, kuja Meru, ita mkutano kama hii, udanganya wa Meru, alafu watakuonesha ni nini Meru na kuanga. Unajua tunataka watu waheshimu watu, tuheshimiane. Let us respect each other. These Meru people have been taken for granted for too long. It must come to an end. Hii maneno kama sasa rais amepanga kufukuza Justice Koome. And I want to tell you, my people of Meru, huyu rais tulimchagua, tulimpenda. Alikuja na Biblia, tukafikiria ni Mkristo, mtu mzuri. Alitudanganya, hakutudanganya. Tukamchagua. Kufika pale ametumia hiyo kiti kumaliza watu ya Mount Kenya. Ameanza na Rigathi, amemfukuza. Akarudi akafukuza Metheka. Sasa amepanga jama ya kumfukuza Koome. Na amepanga pale kotini anahonga watu kufukuza Koome. Mimi nakuuliza Rais William Ruto, Hii watu ya mlima walikupenda, walikupatia kura, uliwadanganya na Biblia. Umeamua kumaliza watoto wote kutoka mlima. Kiongozi yeyote ambaye ako na msimamo, umetupangia jama ya kutufukuza katika serikali katika Kenya. Na anataka akifukuza hii watu, amalize biashara zote za watu ya mlima Kenya. Lakini mimi nakuambia rais, ukifukuza Martha Koome, usikanyange hapa Meru. Mimi nataka nikuambie, ulifukuza Rigathi Gachagua, watu ya mlima wakanyamaza. Ukafikiria ni waoga. Tunakuambia rais, wewe panga jama, ufukuze Martha Koome, na wewe ukae Nairobi, usikanyange hapa Meru tena ukifukuza Martha Koome. Negwadu waitu. Nemopo etekera Martha Koome igato. Mutakubali? Kwani wa Meru mmekuwa waoga? Unajua, this is too much now. How do you purge the leadership of an entire community that made you president? Umepanga jama ya kumaliza jamii ya mlima, kumaliza viongozi wao wale wako na msimamo na kuweka vibaraka, kumaliza biashara ya watu ya mlima. Mambo ya miraa ulituahidi utaangalia. Ameangalia? Ameangalia? Si alikuwa anakuja hapa kwa gari anakula miraa akiwa kwa gari juu? Ilikuwa ni uongo si uongo? You know, how do you take an entire community as fools? Umetutumia vibaya kama jamii. Umetutumia vibaya kama tissue paper. Tumekuchagua. You have turned against us as a community. Umesanya jamii zote kuziunganisha kutuelekea sisi kama jamii. Lakini tunakuambia William Ruto, Mungu hatakubali umalize jamii ya mlima Kenya. Siko namna hiyo. Sasa hii wabunge ya Meru, Martha Koome anafukuzwa, wamenyamaza. Huyu mjumbe wenu mlimtuma kule akanifukuze? Mlimtuma akapitisha finance bill? Sasa Martha Koome anafukuzwa. Senator wa Meru amenyamaza. MPs wote 10 wamenyamaza. Kwani tumekuwa nini Meru? What is happening to the people of Meru? Watu wa Meru wanajulikana kwa kuwa hawanunui uoga. Watu wa Meru ni watu shupavu. These are the descendants of the Mau Mau struggle. Tulikuwa na General Mwaliama, General Baimunge. What has happened to the leadership of Meru? Ya kwamba munaketi na Rais William Ruto akipanga kutumaliza kama jamii, akiumiza viongozi wetu. Anapigana na mama. Rais, ulipigana na mimi Rigathi Gachagua, mimi ni mwanaume. Wachana na Martha Koome, ni mwanamke. Bora unapigana na wanawake. Can you fight your fellow men? Si ndio? Apigana na wanaume? Awachana na huyu mama. Na huyu mama anafukuzwa kwa sababu amekataa kuua mtu ya Yesa. Si ndio? Mtasimama na Martha Koome? Mtasimama na yeye? Huyu mama akifukuzwa, nipige filimbi mtoke kwa barabara. Mtatoka au mtatoka? Mtatoka au mtatoka? Nemuka umera? Yes. We are not going to sit again. We are not going to sit again as William Ruto destroy the leadership of the Mount Kenya Legion. It's too much. It is too much. It cannot be. Pahali huyu rais ametufikisha sasa, it is too much. Semeni is too much. Yes. Na hao viongozi wote wamesaliti jamii, mumepanga mambo yao. Hao viongozi wote wa Meru ambao wamesalili jamii yetu, wametuuza tumbo zao. Mtawashughulikia? Mtawashughulikia? Saa ngapi asubuhi 2027? Saa ngapi? Asubuhi na mapema. Mtawashughulikia? Mtawashughulikia? This community called the Mount Kenya region
That statement, Rigathi made some statements there. He was speaking in Meru. And he's saying that you impeached Rigathi Gachagua and people went quiet. Then you even removed, of course, you now want to remove Martha Koome, and this time round, we will not keep quiet. She has also pulled a gender card that stop fighting with women, come and fight with me as a man. I want to say this. I know someone would wonder and would ask at this time, why is Rigathi supporting the Supreme Court if the courts did not stop his impeachment? Number two, the person that should be worried about this statement is Kithure Kindiki. This is the nature of the Kenyan politics. And sometimes the politics of Mtuwetu is there. I know it is not right. It is not ethically right that the judges are being defended simply because they come from tribe X. So how about tribes who do not have a man who can be heard in the country? The judges should be judged on their competence. And it is true that Rigathi Gachagua needed to defend Martha Koome not based on her gender or her tribe, but based on how she is undertaking her duties. But you will forgive us this. This is where we are as a country. And I'll show you that sometimes the governance, this is what we've planted in the country, where people come to defend one of their own. The things that Rigathi Gachagua is talking about are not things that are just hearsay. The Supreme Court judges, the 7 of them, went to a high court, and Justice Lawrence Mugambi, issued some court injunction against the Judicial Service Commission not to process petitions leveled against the 7 judges. And if you want to know how things are getting murky in the court corridors, the judges of the Apex Court have gone to an inferior court. The judges of Supreme Court have gone to High Court to seek injunction against their removal. And it's very interesting. So what Rigathi is saying is something that we're alive to the fact that there is someone that wants the judges out. Rigathi calls for protests, and he says, if you remove Koome, he's asking the residents there that nikipuliza firimbi mtatoka. I've seen that, and that statement is something that I know people want to understand it differently and explain it differently. Number one, that it is Raila Odinga who used to do that. Number two, you cannot threaten another protest. But what you need to remember is this. The 7 judges of Supreme Court doesn't come from Kikuyu. The 7 judges come from 7 different tribes, and in fact, 7 superior tribes. I don't know that there are some inferior, but I don't mean so. But I mean 7 big tribes. Almost all of them are represented there. Almost all the tribes are represented there. So when you talk about removing that bench at a single protest, someone will say that, oh, Rigathi wants to protect Martha Koome, but Rigathi wants to protect that judiciary. So the protest can escalate to other parts of the country. I saw Murkomen arguing a point about this.
That is why unaona wengine wanasema ati sasa wanajitolea ati wanatetea judiciary na judges ati kupitia ukabila yao. Ati kwa sababu ati ni wakabila fulani. Yani judge, if a judge already is being defended to remain in office because of his tribe, That is a very serious problem in the country. I thought every judge in this country is there by virtue of their competence and capacity to lead the judiciary that we have. And I think we must find ourselves dissociating ourselves from the kind of vitriol that we've seen, where someone is saying we must keep a particular judge in office or remove from office based on their tribe. Everyone must be judged by content of their character and what they deliver in their country. And His Excellency the President is a nationalist. He's not going to get himself into this kind of conversations of shareholder here, this tribe there, and so forth. Now,
but I would want to remind Murkomen that when there was a report that Moses Wetangula was facing impeachment in the National Assembly, I saw a clique of MPs from Western Kenya saying, Msiguze Wetangula. And I would also want to remind Meru MPs that by the time someone spoke about Moses Masika impeachment, Wetangula impeachment, there was a protest in Bungoma for people protesting about Wetangula, against Wetangula impeachment. So as much as what Rigathi is making, of course Rigathi making that statement is constructed to be speaking about it, of course, because of the vendetta, or rather because of the difference, the sharp difference with the president. But you cannot underestimate the fact that in our country, you always defend your own. Too bad, not the right thing, but that is where we are. Maybe we will end it, but not now. We are still there. So, there are some misconceptions here, and if the issue of removing the judges is thriving on the fact that Raila Odinga team have some dislike against Martha Koome through the because of the wild goose chase verdict in the last year's general election. But one would also wonder if this Martha Koome gave William Ruto his way in the last general election, why would he then want Martha Koome to be kicked out? I want to give you an answer. Do you remember in 2013, Justice William Mutunga did not side with Raila during that Supreme Court case in 2013. But when it came to 2017, some members of the bench who were with Mutunga, when Maraga took charge, they actually threw away, dismissed Uhuru Kenyatta's win in the 2017 general election. So, I won't want to belabor myself explaining more about that, but I will tell you, but that tells you the behind the scene intrigues of what's happening. It is very true, there are wave of corruption cases in the courts. I would be myopic to be construed to a thought that those who think of lodging cases against Supreme Court judges are wrong. I believe that in the presidential election, it is my stand, in the presidential election that is decided by the Supreme Court judges, this decision of this power that is bestowed on the heads of seven, the finality that Supreme Court gives our election is normally very unfair, because if it is the seven gentlemen, then the person who wants to retain power, of course, the decision will be made based on the highest bidder. I've always believed that that court is at disposal of people with money. But then, we might all still be thinking along that line. But again, in this podcast, I stood against Rigathi Gachagua impeachment, not because the charges were flimsy, or rather not because Rigathi is a good man, but we believed, and personally I believed, the charges were flimsy, and even Nelson Havi is on record saying that we've lowered the bar of impeaching a deputy president. As a country that is also strengthening institutions, You cannot just take blanket charge against the 7 judges. You must substantiate. They must be specific. You can't just say you need to remove. That is a wrong precedent. But of course, of importance is this. What is the motive? The 2 things that are likely to come out of this process. Either the judges will be shown the door, and even if they don't leave, their tenure is insecure. The tenure of these judges is insecure. What do you think about the decision they will make tomorrow? There are some 2 or 3 things that someone wants to achieve. And that is what I want to explain next. Let me tell you. William Ruto's threat in 2027 are 2 gentlemen. 2 gentlemen. Raila Amolo Odinga, Geoffrey Rigathi Gachagua. And mark this. If Raila Odinga and Geoffrey Rigathi Gachagua forms an alliance, William Ruto will not win 2027 general election. Irregardless, you cannot win that election. That's why you saw in parliament, MPs were saying tunaenda wa Munyoro. Irregardless, you cannot win that election. Now, what is happening here? Rigathi impeachment was very flimsy. The state had its day in the courts. They got their way. There is a serious feeling that the courts will okay Rigathi Gachagua to go and vie. Insecurity of tenure of judges is part of a wider scheme to push the state to submission. It's part of a wider scheme to ensure that clearly those who are supposed to make decision about Rigathi Gachagua, the fate of Rigathi Gachagua, make in favor of the state. And this case will end up in Supreme Court. That you can mark. It will not end in the inferior courts. It will end in the apex court. As much as haitaisha sahi, tenda pole pole. High Court, Court of Appeal, then they go to Supreme Court. It is taking that time. And that is one of the things that is affecting them. Because the moment, there are 2 things. If Rigathi Gachagua is cleared, then William Ruto will remain with an ugly egg on his face that you actually sanctioned a fake and flawed impeachment against your deputy. And that will bolster Rigathi Gachagua. Number 2, I have a feeling, and I think the country must be very wary. The country must be keen. I would want to remind this country that how long has it taken us to reconstitute IEBC? Do you remember? Chebukati left office in January 2023. Chebukati and the 2 commissioners, Boyamolu. The others had already been taken. They already left the country for exile. For the last 2 years, we've not had IBC, with the cases and court orders from one court after the other forestalling the process simply because we know that young people, the Gen Zs, will go to register, and the commission informed in time it is supposed to form a by-election. It is supposed to do a by-election, which the president doesn't want. I am afraid we might scrap this. You might send home the Supreme Court judges, and we might end up in the next election without the Supreme Court. Can we go to an election without the Supreme Court? The answer is no. The answer is no. And so I'm raising this alarm because we know the president has gone in public as very efficient. Mambo ni matatu. Toka, nikuue, ama sijui fanya nini. But the president is not interested in fixing IBC. And as much as he's very effective, but I want to say this for the record. that if the Supreme Court is disbanded as we speak, if those judges are sent home, it will be the start of the death. It will be the beginning of the death of the Supreme Court. We might not form another one to the next general election. And the country will fear. We cannot go to an election without Supreme Court. Where will we take election petition? Presidential petition? Where will we? So the country must be keen. We might differ with Rigathi on the fact that the judges should not be defended based on their tribes or based on their gender. But we must also agree that the due process needs to be followed and political mechanism around power. We must be keen on the political mechanism around power. When people are in power, they're normally drunk. The country must think. Thank you.